What up? What up? It's your boy Concert Viz 34 and back at it again. Saturday night stream was off last Saturday due to the fact that I was at a live music event, Humphreys McGee in New Haven, Connecticut. So I had to take a week off. But I'm back. Welcome back, everyone. It is, I'll tell you this, it's nice to see live music back-to-back weekends. It is something that, makes me feel like things are back to normal despite the social distancing at the venue. And I know a lot of other acts are starting to announce tours. You have some delays. Hey, Jacob. Where does he DMB? Jacob, are you on Twitter? Do you have a Twitter handle that maybe I'm familiar with? Let me know. But yeah, I'm definitely excited to see DMB this summer. But yeah, it's here in Connecticut. We have shows that are going on and are planning to still go on with social distance, and then we have shows that are being added by the week for the full capacity venues here in Connecticut. So across the country, we've seen a change in the CDC guidelines when it comes to outdoor activities, when it comes to even being indoors with certain family members and friends who are vaccinated. And it makes sense now why there was such a gutsy call for DMB. I do have a okay. I wasn't sure, Jay, because I know like some people, I know their Twitter handle, and then there's a lot of commentary on Twitter, interaction on Twitter, and then I'm not sure when they come on YouTube with a different account. But thanks for coming in and checking this out. And I mean, it's just you're starting to see that essentially what really changed everything is that these businesses could not go without another, they couldn't go another summer without any sort of show. I mean, without any sort of revenue, right? So you have an entertainment of all kinds, sporting events, and just other restaurants, things like that. They couldn't go without. The interesting thing is going to be for this, as everything gets back, as we look to go to these DMB shows and Dead and Company shows and whoever you want to see, there's an ongoing fight right now between corporations and the worker at the entry level or even mid-tier of entertainment and food service and all sorts of just service industries. And essentially people are saying, you know what? I didn't have to be at this restaurant. I did not have to be a stagehand. I did not have to go to this job working these crazy hours with a lot of labor and get paid a little money. I found a job in this industry. I worked Uber, even if it was Uber, and they have their wage fights too. But I did other stuff to grind, and I made it through. I may have needed that check for a couple of those stimulus checks, but I made it through. So do I want to go back to this industry? This has to do with hotels that you're going to stay at. This has to do with the rental car facilities that people rent cars from. This has to do with the food options wherever these may be. And when you look at the Gorge Amphitheater, there's only so many towns, and they're small towns that you only have so many food options. So as we get back onto the DMB touring, onto the other touring, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with some of these hotels. Some hotels are talking about having managers vacuum and clean rooms, if it takes that, because there's certain, I know here in the Northeast, in Mid-Atlantic, like the Jersey Shore, which is a couple hours, about 3 hours, three and a half, 4 hours from me at the northernmost areas of the Jersey Shore. And they're having trouble hiring people. They're doing all sorts of things. You have food services, even like, and when you go to concerts, you have a lot of fans who are lighting the green stuff and they want to go to McDonald's and Taco Bell and Carl's Jr. and Chipotle. And you don't have, some of these places are struggling to hire people. So as we get back to normal, just something to keep in mind that people who worked in these industries are like, wow, well, I found a new job, or I found a way to make it through without working this tough, rigorous schedule for little pay. And they're fighting to say, we want 15, 20, 25, 30, as far as and this is more of at the lower levels. And then even at the mid-tier levels of some of these industries, people want a living wage. And the price of everything is going up. So they want the minimum wage to go up. And regardless of what you think of it, this is going to be something that impacts for the next year or two. Because at the end of the day, one thing I respect so much the people that work to clean these venues, to set up the stages, to set up these hotels, to deal with the crazy people in the hotel, to clean rooms, to be on these like different service jobs at the airlines that cut people when times got tough. And these people on the cruise ships. I'm not a huge cruise guy. I've been on one cruise and I really don't have an intention to go on another. I'd rather do an all-inclusive resort type thing before I do a cruise. But I just respect some of the people that work at the lower and mid-tier levels of these industries and the servers, right? You can make good money serving, but that's not, when the pandemic hits, that all went away. So Ron from Colorado, hey, nice to see you again, checking in. And you guys are getting some more shows out there in Colorado. Dead and Company announced touring dates out there for 2 nights. So it's nice to see Colorado open up. What should be the opening song for the tour opener? Everyone is saying Hello Again. I'm against that being the opener just because I think it's too cliche and I'm not a huge fan of that being the opener. I'm always going to say the Stones should open up. I don't care, or a JTR. Now, the Singing from the Windows would be an appropriate opener because that was the theme song of the pandemic. But I'm honestly anything but Hello Again. And I know if it's played, it's played. And I'm just anti Hello. It's just, yeah. See, I like Granny. It's Granny's a good song. Hello Again's not the worst song of all time. I really don't like. I just really don't want it to be the opener. And it has its moments. The song has its moments, but I don't want it to be an opener. Nor do I want stand-up songs frequenting this tour schedule. Oh, so you're going to Red Rocks in July for Dirty Heads. That's awesome. Congrats on getting tickets for that. I know it's been very difficult. June and July there's an interesting line in the sand for Red Rocks. Artists like the Revivalists, One Sweet World. That would be another. Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed. I think that's another great song to open. But there's a line in the sand out there in Colorado for Red Rocks specifically, where the June shows, artists were told, look, we're not doing full capacity, so you have to sell your tickets with limited capacity. In July, there's some hope. July and August for Red Rocks, but still nothing is confirmed to be 100%. Last I checked. 600 for 2GA. Did you buy them off the secondary or was that the face value? And Jacob, good point about Bayou. I'm interested to see what's going to happen. Oh, secondary. Okay, so you just wanted secure. Okay, and look, the thing about this is, I just went to shows, and a lot of the 2 acts that I went to see, Government Mule here, socially distanced, and Humphreys McGee, they both have they frequent Red Rocks, and actually Umphreys will be in Red Rocks, and they have a special process that they're doing to verify fans even outside of Ticketmaster, because I think Red Rocks has AXS, if I'm correct. It's not Ticketmaster for Red Rocks, it's AXS, which actually the venue here, you overpaid but haven't been anywhere. Right. Yeah. So to you, it's just, look, the price is worth it to you because you've been sitting around for last summer with money and you saved it up, and this is a special moment. Yeah. I mean, hey, if that's what you're willing to pay, I can't knock it, man. This pandemic has been difficult on so many levels that if that's what you want to pay to secure and be stress free, right? To get that, pay the 600, you have money sitting around. And that's how I feel about the Gorge and getting a rental car. Some of these rental cars are in the 50, 60, 70, $80 a day amounts. And I'm not staying just for the weekend. I'm going to be trying to fly out there Tuesday or Wednesday, because the half of the, actually, I would say 75% of my last Gorge experience was traveling the Pacific Northwest. It was beautiful. The other 25% was actually the shows. Um, the Gorge, and the thing about the Gorge, Ron, is, to me, this is why I'm not worried about the tickets right now. I'm worried about I'm gonna have to get a flight soon, and I'm gonna have to. I think tonight, in the next couple of days, I'm gonna be securing a rental car. I've been sitting on it. It got a little better from a couple weeks ago, but with the Gorge, at the worst case, you're on the best lawn in America, the best lawn GA area in America, period. Sometimes in the show, I do wish I'm closer, but it's the most beautiful lawn. And then the tickets, look, the lower level may have a higher demand, but there's only so many people that can secure access to be within 2 hours of the Gorge, or 3 hours of the Gorge, or 4 hours of the Gorge that weekend. So with the tickets to the Gorge, I'm sitting it out right now, and I'm going to see what it's going. I'll buy face lawn seats, or I'm going to get something closer up for a day. My goal is to just get one day in the seats or the pit, and then just go from there. I definitely want one night, or one day or night in the lawn, at the in the GA lawn, because it's beautiful. But the Gorge is, you have to get there. It's unlike any other major venue in the United States where you're 2 hours from Seattle. You're 40 minutes from Moses Lake, and you're about, same distance, 30, 40 minutes from Ellensburg, or is it, what's out there? Ellensburg, and then when not, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, Wenatchee or Wenatchee. That's a small town anyway. But let me look. Gorge Amphitheater. I think it's Ellensburg. Hoping to take Moms to Gorge for her 50th in 23. Yeah, hopefully all goes well and the band's still touring and everything is able to line up. I think as the year, if they continue to, is it Ellensburg? Yeah, Ellensburg. That's what it is. Yep. We have the Gorges in Quincy, but I'm talking about the major towns. So you have Ellensburg to the east, Moses Lake to the west, and then you have Wenatchee is north, but you have to take a more rural route to go north, up 28 to get up to there, and then you meets Route 2. And I've heard great things about. I will probably visit Wenatchee. When I was working in insurance claims on a national basis 3 or 4 years ago, someone told me about that when I took a claim out in Washington State. Now I work more in my industry. I'm more northeastern in a higher up position, so I don't talk to people from the West Coast like I used to. I used to take like the customer service calls from coast to coast. But I remember someone saying go up there, and I've heard great things about that town. But honestly, 75% of me going back to the Gorge is for the people, the DMB people I'm going to meet there that have already said they're going, and to travel and explore some other parts of the area. And if you guys haven't heard on previous streams, I drove about 1,200 miles from landing in SeaTac in 2019. I drove about 200 miles. No, 1,200 miles. The first day I drove to the coast of Oregon, and stayed in just outside of Portland and rurally in what was that called? Clatskanie, Washington. So I drove down to northern coastal Oregon, just north of Cannon Beach, in a small private beach. So I went out there. I went to Seattle the next day I'm a Yankees fan, so it just lined up. The Yankees were in town. Saw Yankees Mariners, and saw Paxton play, who's now with the Mariners, and I think needs Tommy John. So it's, I wish him the best, even though he's with the Mariners. Drove across from suburban Seattle, just west, or just east of, because I was right by the Seahawks training facility, like literally a stone's throw away after the Mariners game, and then drove across the state to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Cannon Beach. So I didn't go to Cannon Beach. I went to a recreational beach just north of there, and I would strongly suggest that beach. I can't remember what it was. Let me think. Let me look. See. The thing I like, and now keep in mind, Ron, I'm from Connecticut, so I'm an East Coast Atlantic Ocean beacher. One thing I loved about this beach and I've heard great things about the West Coast, and even from like working in insurance, West Coast customers are more open to environmental parts in saving the environment and having eco-friendly cars. For better or for what, we can get in this conversation about that another time. Because I have some strong feelings about Tesla, and even though people think it's eco-friendly, the way they make the batteries and the way the parts are made, anyway, it's a whole different thing, whole mess. I don't want to get into it right now. There was a recreational facility. It's just north of Cannon Beach. It was. Let me see if I can look it up. I'll have to look it up later. But it was a smaller beach, but it was so beautiful because it was less mess with, and it was right off of 101. Um, I can't remember where it was. El Paso to Fairbanks. Oh my gosh, that's cool. That's very cool. And I've actually, one of the cool things that I wanted to try to do geography wise is actually go up through British Columbia. Um, I don't know, the border is shut down. I'm not going to do it this time, but I wanted to drive up to British Columbia towards Alaska. There is a town called Hyder, Alaska, that you can actually drive. You only can access it by going through Canada, but it's a very small town, and it's actually like very few people. And I think there's a camera at the border crossing because they don't have enough people. But Hyder, Alaska is actually surrounded by Canada. And it's just, so you only wait, like it's literally a part of America where you have to, you only can enter through Canada, and there's like limited roads. Oh, the Alcan Highway, 1,000 mile strip. You can't, yeah. And I've heard, I know like some of those gas stations don't even have premium gas, right? Through that stretch of British Columbia, where they may only have unleaded, the regular, it was an 87 grade. So I know it can be an interesting. I'm sure that was an interesting check to go through Fairbanks all the way through. But anyway, I saw that to say that I'm excited for the concerts. I think that recently some of the current events of pricing for a lot of stuff is going to be interesting. Oh, some gas stations aren't even open. I'm sure. I mean, it's such a sparsely traveled area, and if you can't get the business, and then with every, yeah, because it's like, how do you know, like how far, if you don't plan those stops? So for DMB, definitely the Gorge and definitely Mohegan. Right now, I'm making plans to look at Guilford, one of the two shows there, and then Mansfield, Mass. I That's outside of the Gorge in Hartford. I mean, Mohegan, outside of Gorge and Mohegan, which are those are the ones I'm planning to go to. The other ones, I would say Mansfield would be the most likely after that, and then Guilford, New Hampshire for a show, most likely. But I want to see what these prices do, and I'm in a benefit where these are day drives. I can drive during the day. I probably will stay over just because it's, like New Hampshire. Guilford is about 3 hours away. I don't like driving at night unless I have to that way. I don't mind driving up like when I'm coming from New York City, I don't mind driving that at night because it's such a heavily populated area, where if something happens, you can get it told, you can get this. But that part of New Hampshire and even going into Mass, sometimes the rest stops and other stuff can be limited, and just at night, the highways are tighter. So I probably will stay over for the New Hampshire show. I don't know. We'll see what goes on with that. Now, I want to talk a little Rock and Roll Hall of Fame briefly. And just briefly, because I put this on Twitter. I've never been someone, I mean, if I had a decision, if I had a dog in the fight where the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame said, okay, you can speak in front of us to convince you why DMB should get in, or hey, you have a vote and your vote's going to have a say, I would absolutely vote for DMB. Absolutely vote for DMB. At the same time, I'm not upset, or I'm not really mad that DMB's not in. Because to me, the band, even themselves, they don't like, they'll be honored. They were honored just to be nominated, right? And it'll be a special moment. It'll be a special moment for the band if they ever get inducted, and it'll hit them probably then. But they're not playing to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The fans are what they miss. The energy from the shows is what they love. That's what keeps them going. Even when they lost a critical part of the band, which is the violin, and they lost Leroy Moore before that, which to me, in many ways, you could argue is just as critical, if not more critical, because the entire sound of the band changed after Leroy died. And to me, the shows would be worth more bang for your buck. It'd be worth more money if Leroy was still there, just simply for the fact that even if he started to have issues himself with just, the way he blew his horn, his saxophone and soprano and all that stuff, even if he started to be a couple steps slower, the whole band would stay an acoustic band. You may have an electric guitar guest here and there, and you had Rashawn would still be around, but to me, the Leroy is just as impactful, if not more, to the band's core sound. But I say that to say the band doesn't care about, they're driven by the fans and being in front of people to play and perform. They don't care about these awards as much. They're honored to get Grammys. They're honored to get these achievement awards. Oh, the Mansfield Jam. Yeah, I've heard of it. I think I was at, they played it once when I was there. I want to say, see if it was in 2014. Oh, don't drink the water. Right, but I've heard of the Mansfield Jam. Oh, you just sent it to me. Oh, that's from the 2012 tour sample. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I thought there's been a couple improv. They do an improv jam a lot because, like, for instance, 2014, before Don't Drink the Water, after Funny the Way It Is, I was at that show. They did improv. Xfinity Center. Let's see. Or it was Comcast Center that day. 615. They didn't have an improv there, but 2015. But I know in 2014 they had an improv, but it wasn't that one because it was something else. It just says Improv Jam on the almanac, and I'm looking at this here, Xfinity Center. We got a Smooth Rider partial that day, 2015, June 13th, into a two-step. But anyway, this is my thing about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is using another insurance metaphor, compare or kind of thing. Geico Insurance, it comes from this idea government employees insurance. It was insurance for the government employees. It grew into a larger company that I'm not a government employee. I have Geico for car insurance. So you don't need to. Originally, you would have to be a government employee, but now you're not. Farmers insurance, same thing. Farmers used to be it for farmers, right? And now it's for everyone who can apply. And if you get accepted, if they want to cover you, they can. In the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is the same thing. It was called the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's its business name, and they're not going to change it. And if they change it, it would actually be worse. They're better off keeping it as the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and still letting in so many artists from R&B and rock and hip hop and alternative and other pop artists. So first, people get upset with that idea. Why is Jay's? Why is this? Why is that? That's one of those layers. And to me, it's this: the business model changed, just like Geico has so many more people than it did when it first started because they expanded it past government employees. Farmers Insurance has more people tied to them because they went beyond farmers. And I think Farm Bureau is the same way. Farm Bureau, you don't have to be a farmer. So they expanded and they get a lot of small town America. But ultimately, these insurance companies, as they change, still determine who is covered. You could be in a state like Massachusetts and have a great driving record, but Safeco Insurance may not insure people in Massachusetts because it's just not part of their business model. They'd rather work in certain states where they make the profits, they look at the data, and this is where it is. So you could have an impeccable driving record and not be added by an insurance company because their zip code, they're limiting how many people they insure. They're lowering their risk in certain areas where, from a business standpoint, they don't know how to make money in this area, right? And Massachusetts is a very tricky state for insurance, working in the industry. So you have certain people that don't insure people in Mass, right? Texas and California, there's different pros and cons to insure. Like in Texas, insuring a house in Houston is a huge risk. Why? Because it's part of a floodplain, a lot of the city. And also because of the lack of prairie grass, Houston is more prone to flood as concrete takes up prairie grass. The prairie grass used to absorb more water. Now it doesn't. Why am I saying all this? Because the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is the same way. Just as underwriters can approve you for insurance, in one little factor, right? Like, for instance, you could be in a household where you have your son or your daughter with you, or you could be an adult that lives with your mom or your dad, and like, let's say you got out of a bad divorce. They may not insure the policy because the policy has to have you and your parent on it, and you're the divorce. There's many odd reasons why things aren't insured. So I say that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is the same way. There's no rhyme and reason. The fan vote was guaranteed to be one ballot vote towards the Hall of Fame. Historically, it just happened to be that prior to DMB, the ballot vote that went towards that whoever won the fan vote, whoever got that always got in. But that doesn't mean that it's a guarantee that they say, oops, they won the fan vote, we're going to let them in. No, because otherwise DMB would be in. But the other voters just didn't vote for DMB. But this is a private institution. This is a private business, just like the Geico Insurance is private business, and Farmers Insurance is a private business. They make the call for better or for worse for their bottom line. This is not a congressional, Congress does not pick who makes the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, right? This is not a federal government or even a state like the state of Ohio. It's not something on the state level that chooses who's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. It's a private business with its own right. It's a pop culture Hall of Fame, but that's not a good name. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is an awesome name to call it, even if there's not rock acts there. And rock and roll comes from the blues, and the blues comes from a lot of African American jazz and pre-blues, Negro spirituals, as they call them. So that whole idea of where rock and roll came from is from a genre that birthed not only rock and roll, but R&B. And R&B influenced what would now be called hip hop or rap. So they're just keeping that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's already a brand name, right? To rebrand it would be dumb to call it a pop culture Hall of Fame, because then you don't get that edge of, oh, I'm in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Because if rock acts get in, yeah, I'm in the Rock and Roll, not the Pop Culture Hall of Fame. You think Zeppelin wants to be in the Pop Culture Hall of Fame? No. They want to be like, rock and roll has a more impactful meaning even for non-rock acts. So that's the first part of that. That's why anyone can get in. And again, the second part is just they make the decision. It's a private business, just like the Grammys. Matter of fact, the Golden Globes is being pulled from NBC, for last I heard, next year because they don't have enough of a diverse voting force. And I don't know who votes. I don't know the diversity of the Rock Hall, but they actually do induct a lot of, again, people of various ethnicities. All right. And even the thing is, Pink Floyd didn't get in the first time. Rush struggled for years to get in. So even the classic rock acts have struggled. DMB is not a pure rock act. But when Zeppelin and Floyd and everyone else, they were not automatic bids. And now they're trying to make these things more diverse. And to me, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, for what the issues are in these little selection committees, the problem with the Oscars and the Grammys and all this other stuff is they actually are not having a diverse class. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is for PR. They don't care if DMB fans are mad at them. They're trying to make their induction more diverse. So yeah, I think it is like you have a couple rock acts, you have some pop, but they want to get those people of color, of various minorities, Latino, African American. Maybe you see some Pacific Islander, people, and other races. They want to make this thing more diverse because people are dropping the Golden Globes from TV next year because there's not enough diversity. Right. I don't think of DMB as a rock and roll act. And the thing is, though, they have a case to make with their number one album records. They have a case to make with their touring. But the other thing is this: the Grateful Dead. Now, the Grateful Dead is even more extreme than DMB, because here's the thing: Grateful Dead sold out more stadiums. Now, DMB has some ticket records, all this stuff, cool. But the Grateful Dead sold out stadiums until their final years. In the 80s and 90s, they were selling out stadiums. Like DMB right now could not sell out a stadium. They used to be able to do that. They can't do that unless they were to do what Pearl Jam does and have like 5 shows in the United States a year. Then they could sell out stadiums because people would just all flock to the 4 or 5 shows a year. But DMB, when they do 20, 30 shows in a year, they can't sell out stadiums. In certain markets, you can make a case they could, but even in New York City, I don't think they could get 80,000 people. You're talking, SPAC sells out 2 nights, and even so, well, not sells out. SPAC actually still has lawn tickets available for the day of the show. And that's a New York market. Jones Beach has physical seats, but they don't always sell out every single seat, right? Every time. And that's in the Long Island area. That's just southeast of New York City. So DMB, even in New York City, unless they were only to do a caravan type thing, they're not selling out a football stadium like MetLife Stadium. But the Grateful Dead did that towards the end of their career. Jerry passed away. Who knows what their sales would have been if they could have toured through the 2000s. Let's just give Jerry to 2000 if he doesn't have that, fateful, passing. But the Grateful Dead didn't have anything close to what DMB has for number one. Their first Billboard single was in the 80s, right? In the 80s. All their albums in the 70s when they were selling out, they didn't get it till the 80s. So they are a polarizing band where they have a culture, but it's not mainstream. You can find Deadheads in any given, you could drive, if it's a nice day anywhere, you'll probably see a Grateful Dead decal on a bike or on a car cruising out to go somewhere. But they never had things that charted in the 70s. And even in the 80s, it was one song, right? And then even in the 90s, they didn't have, things weren't charting for them. But they sold out stadiums year after year after year, even when other rock bands had their prime and then they went downhill, had to go down to arenas again. So all I say is that there's no rhyme and reason for this. And I don't really, what I try to do, the thing that gets me most fired up is why fans get so mad about it when really it doesn't make or break. The Stone is not going to sound any better if DMB gets in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Louisiana Bayou is still going to be a bathroom break song, even if DMB gets in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, for me personally. So I don't really know. And speaking of the Grateful Dead and Dead and Company, another interesting thing, I don't know if you saw this, Ron. The Grateful, and here's the difference. DMB is rescheduling shows, so they can't, the promoters already wrote out the contracts and they're just extending it through to 2021. And the shows were delayed contractually because they could not hold 100% capacity at these shows last year. Even through June, shows were rescheduled because they could not contractually be confident that they could have 100% capacity in May or June of 2021. 2021. So they moved these shows, but they can't, to make a change for fans to have to wear certain things or do certain things, like have a vaccine to be in the pit, they can't do that. But the Grateful Dead spinoff band, Dead and Company, because they canceled everything from last year, they just canceled it, they didn't reschedule it, and they've announced a late summer into fall tour. Here's what they did. They had in the contract, the promoters exclusively wrote, before tickets even went on sale for the verified fan process, which started earlier this week, they said that if you do not have proof of vaccination, you cannot enter the pit the day of the show. If you don't have proof that you were vaccinated, you cannot enter the pit. Even if you have a legal ticket, they will relocate you to another area of the venue if you do not have proof of vaccination. Now, this is controversial, right? And, I'm not saying anyone needs to get the vaccine if you don't feel comfortable. I've decided that choice for me. I'm not going to tell anyone to get the vaccine. You have to get the vaccine. I strongly suggest people get it. But if you don't want to get it for your own reason, that's fine. But what's interesting is what Dead and Company is saying is you can have VIP tickets right behind the pit and not be vaccinated. That is fine. But they're saying for the closest part, the most intimate, I'm really next to everyone in the crowd, you have to have proof of vaccination. You could be vaccinated, but if you don't have proof, too bad. Now, maybe that's going to be a card. Maybe they can have something you pre-show, or you get you can take a picture of it, send it in, and then they give you some sort of thing to scan. that you've been pre-certified by sending in your vax card photo by a month ago. Who knows? But they're putting that in the language to say, look, we're warning you before tickets go on sale. You buy a ticket, primary or secondary, and if you don't have proof or you didn't go through a screening process to show your vaccination card, you're being moved to a different part of the venue. So it'll see what happens. It'll see what it will eventually to see what happens for that, because that's a really bold initial that, like, most 99% of acts aren't doing that right now with the pit, right? They're just having it. They're saying, hey, well, more information to come. And really, if they're not announcing it now, they can't really sell people that the week before the show. And the idea is, though, that will be a certain percentage of people will be vaccinated by then, and then the numbers of COVID will keep dropping. So we will see what happens with that matter, and that's going to be an interesting test. The thing is, though, after this year, you really aren't going to really see that at all, because the idea is that, barring any sort of mutation, even if there is a mutation, that the initial vaccine will be out. They may have a booster shot for older people or people in general, all adults. But the idea is that this thing, as far as you catch it, it's so contagious as a virus, and then you can go to the hospital on a ventilator. Like, that idea is going to be curbed by the fact that you have a certain percentage of people vaccinated. The last topic I had planned was, again and again, Stefan played again and again for, he's been doing some, like, taking videos of himself playing bass. He's done some classic covers of 80s songs, 90s songs. He's done some DMB covers. And he did again and again earlier this week. And excuse me. And what I commented on this is, I love Again and Again because it has so much space. And one of the things that's missing from a lot of DMB songs live, especially the newer material, is there's not a lot of space. And some of those songs work. They're supposed to be high energy. They're supposed to be more rock based. The band has changed. But at the same time, some of it, I miss them having space. And as a guitarist, one of the things I struggle with is being able to masterfully play riffs with space included. Is extremely hard to do, because you just want to jam. As a guitarist, you just want to jam, especially when it comes to rock and blues and other things. You're the head honcho in driving the music, is that electric guitar. But allowing space, having these riffs where you're just doing upstrokes or downstrokes and letting it sit, and then you do some playing and you let it sit, and then you have some little slight moderate type of thing where you're just kind of there slightly, but you're letting the bass play out. You're letting the keys play out. I love Again and Again because that song, like, it's probably one of Tim's best performances, where he is able to play brilliantly, but not play too overbearing. Right? He's doing some stuff on the lower strings, and he's just and he's very percussive too with the way he does it. And I love that about Again and Again. It's not my favorite song off the album, but even so, Virginia in the Rain is the same way. Tim plays a little more on that, but it just kind of flows out. Tim's not playing these crazy shred moments of notes, which are impressive, especially on acoustic guitar where it's harder to do that. But that's not what D&B has been about for the most part. You have your heavy rock songs, and you have songs where you have some crazy brass lines and in sax lines, things like that. But the core of D&B, when it was more open, even a song like What You Are, right? It's driven by the bass playing of Stefan and what Dave is, the subtle playing of Dave during the verses. But that leaves the space, just being able to hear that open space, and the bass stands out more. Carter's playing stands out more. When they had Boyd, his violin playing stood out more. I love the open space D&B can have. And the thing is, a lot of the newer material doesn't allow for that in the way that made it special in previous eras of the band. So again and again, it was nice to see Stefan play that song and kind of highlight his bass part that's what's you hear that more than the actual music. And I would love for Stefan to stand out more, but what that takes is less Tim and less Rashawn, and then just more space. They don't have to play, and that's why I like guests with D&B more than Tim sometimes. Now Tim is talented, and he is a treat to see live. But when you're seeing D&B, I was listening to live tracks too today. I listened to what's considered the third CD when I was running, and that's why I'm yawning, because I went for a jog. But Santana, he has a very crunchy guitar. It's very distorted, and he's playing. But what Santana does is during Sugar Will, during Watchtower, during Warehouse, he does not step in until the choruses, or when it's time to solo at the end. He allows Dave's guitar to ring out in Warehouse. He allows Stefan's bass line in Sugar Will to play out for 90% of the song. In the final 10%, Santana goes off. He even allows for the jam to build up before he enters with his electric guitar. So you get to enjoy the space. You get to enjoy the openness of no one solo over it just yet. You get to enjoy the verses and choruses of Sugar Will, and you feel like you're falling off a cliff and going up. It's like a roller coaster ride, but a fun one, right? When you hear that with the different time signatures and the different ways the percussion notes are coming in from Stefan. The bass notes are coming in from Stefan, the percussiveness of Carter, and Dave's percussiveness from his acoustic. That song is fun because of those things, without having a loud electric guitar and having some obsessive horns from Rashawn, horn play from Rashawn, as I call it. So I would love to see more openness from the band, where you have those spaces where you can just sit back and enjoy the skeleton of what makes D&B great, which is the bass line, the percussiveness of Dave's guitar, and then Mr. Carter Beauford on the drums. That's what makes D&B awesome. Tim is great, but Tim overplays. I look at some of the busted stuffs from 2010, I believe it was, and he just played in Scranton, Montage Mountain, Scranton, Pennsylvania. He is playing over Dave, and it's excruciating. It's painful. There's a lot of pain when you're like, dude, he's just playing over Dave. He's just playing over Dave like it's Tim CDC season. And this is a hard rock band. And that's frustrating to me as a fan to listen back to that recording of busted stuff, and you just hear Tim. That song's about Dave in the bass line from Stefan. So that's what really gets to me. There is, as you guys know, if you follow me, I just don't like when you can't hear Dave's guitar, when there's not enough space for the band to breathe on. Any other final thoughts and questions at this time? And thank you everyone who came in to support. But any other thoughts? Otherwise, I am out of here in a moment. But yeah, this it's going to be an interesting summer. You have a lot of things going on with the way this world is getting back to normal, and we'll see what happens. We still don't know the policies for some of these venues. And like I said, just things like gas, hotels, and lodging, flights. Flights are cheaper right now in some cases than they would have been before the pandemic. But then hotels are up in certain places, and the rentals are extremely high up everywhere because it's hard to get a rental. Because there's less cars that flew into the rental market, and Hertz filed for bankruptcy, so they're reducing the amount of stores they have. So there is a lot to be excited about, and there's a lot going on here with this season of getting back to concerts. That's all I got for right now. Be back next Saturday. Definitely tell a friend to tell a friend. I love, like today, Ron, it was nice to talk with you. I get easily sidetracked, but I love talking about life and about journeys and traveling. Jacob, thank you for coming on to check this out. And anyone else who came in and came out, I appreciate the support. I know on a Saturday night, sometimes people have other plans themselves. So I don't take it personal if you can't make it. If you're watching the replay, thank you for watching the replay. If you made it 51 minutes, salute to you. I really appreciate it. This channel really is to share my experiences. I'm not monetized right now. This is just a love I have to talk and share and give my opinions. And I felt there was an absence of, I'm a huge hip hop fan. J. Cole's album just came out. Nicki Minaj had a new song with Lil Wayne and Drake. But there's plenty of hip hop people that cover this. There's also people in other parts of rock that cover different parts of that. But I never saw anyone talking about DMB like this on YouTube. I know Ants Marching has their own thing, but it's hard to find people who on a weekly basis like me. There's many people who love DMB, many people who have seen the band well before I saw them for the first time in 2012. But this channel was made on this idea. Let me share my experiences. Let me review the shows I go to. Let me say, okay, yes, DMB is the main thing, but let me give you my experiences at Humphreys McGee, the Revivalist. Let me show you my Stevie Wonder experience of going to a show there. Let me show you Earth, Wind, and Fire. Any show that I'm going to, I love to share these experiences with you. And again, I appreciate the support from those of you guys who have subscribed, who like, who comment. It means a lot. And like I said, 1 or 2 people coming in here with the conversation is all I'm looking for. It's not about 50,000 people watching this video. If I get 5 people to watch this video and it impacts them and they give me things back to talk about, to share their perspective, that's what it's about. That's what life's about. Anyway, it's your boy Conserviz34. Definitely like, comment, subscribe. I'm out. Peace.